Welcome to this week's Deep Dive. I'm here with Gloria Moss. Gloria will be talking about how people are controlled. We can see it everywhere in the media, but one of the main things that people are controlled by at the moment is through the education system. So Gloria, let's talk about how people start to get controlled. So the information and the research that you've done into how people are controlled and manipulated and socially engineered, how has your work kind of highlighted how this has started in the education system?
Well, I think if we look back in history, and I'm passionate about history, we can learn so much from delving into our past. There are so many people we can learn from. For example, the third president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, made it absolutely clear how things stood. He said that if a nation expects to be ignorant and free, they're expecting what never was and never will be, that the people cannot be safe without information. It's as simple as that. Information is the lifeblood of freedom. And if we go back in time, we find Frederick the Great, Prussia, saying something very similar back in the 1700s. He said that if soldiers were to be able to think, then not one of them would ever remain in the army. So guess what he did in 1760? He set up compulsory schooling to make sure that the schooling that children received was controlled and people were not allowed to miss school. Hey, does that ring a bell with today? And we can go right up to the modern day to a best-selling novelist, Tom Clancy, who said that if you can control information, basically you can control people.
And it's in the word, isn't it? Information. The wording means stand people in formation. It's there in the word.
Yes, that's a brilliant point. Yes, and that has been the purpose of a lot of education. And Rockefeller, we know that Rockefeller stepped in to control the medical system, but he also stepped in to control education. And back in, when was it, 1912, he chose a Baptist minister, Frederick Bates, to head up an education organization that he, Rockefeller, established. And Bates said that there were, and he was followed by somebody called Dr. Inglis, who headed up the secondary school textbook arm of a major publishers. And Dr. Inglis said that there were two purposes to education. One is to get people into the habit of following authority. And the second purpose was to ensure that they didn't develop as individuals. So, if we go back into our past, we find plenty of people telling us how education can conceivably be controlled. Now, you mentioned the media, Richard, and I think many of our viewers will be very, very alive to the control that's exercised by the mainstream media, which, if we look at Britain, at the last count, I think it was 2021, just 3 media outfits in Britain controlled 90% of the newspaper output. And that's Reach PLC, which controls the Daily Express, and it's the Daily Mail Group, and it's News UK, which of course is run by no other than Murdoch. And in his empire, of course, is the Sun newspaper with an astounding 38 million readers. Incidentally, over a 10-year period, if you look at the school secondary system, by my rough calculations, I would reckon that about 35 million children pass through the doors of secondary schools over a 10-year period. And so, we're looking at how information can be controlled. People are wide awake to the control exercised by the media, but are people equally awake to the control exercised by education? And furthermore, is everybody likely to be controlled in equal manner? And I guess if we were all controlled by, as you say, information in the same way, we wouldn't be sitting here today having our conversation, would we?